November 21st, 2018, at approximately 3:01 p.m., on this day, the power of positive social media sent me a message. I'm sure you're now wondering, isn't this a party for David? Like, who is this woman? Some of you haven't met me. The message read, it was through Facebook. Hi. I'm an adoptee, born in 1950. I found my birth mother 25 years ago and have reason to believe that your father is my father. A sister and a nephew to our brother Bill and Blair, nephews Lucas, Logan, and Tyson. This was the first glimpse of knowing I had a more extended family and the beginning of knowing David. So today, I am honored to be part of the celebration of my nephew's life. One well-lived. David, at a young age, realized life is short, and he's been given a gift, and chose to live that life to its fullest. A very small percentage of people will have traveled and experienced life at its fullest, as David did, and you will all see today. Together with Cece, Ian, Dan, extended family, and friends, we will see a glimpse of an amazing life well lived. On your programs, if anyone would like to share any thoughts or memories as we go through, please reach out to me and we'd like to hear your story. Thank you. When the news was heard, a childhood friend reached out to Cece, as many have. To his parents, her name was Lisa Carosa. A gifted writer composed a poem of David and their childhood memories shortly after she heard the news. And here it goes. In cadet blues, we stood in line, drills and parades, our youthful sign. With every step, a sharp command, we moved as one, a close-knit hand. The bass drum's rhythm, in cadence true, a march of youth, as up we grew. His smile, a beacon so wide and kind, a light of joy forever enshrined. On Moncton roads, with laughter shared, to Norton fields where cows stared. We tipped the beasts, then fled in glee, our laughter echoing wild and free. His humor dry, a witty spark, amidst the ranks his laughter's marked. He was wise beyond his youthful years, a mind so bright it charmed his peers. On two wheels he joined the fray, his duster coat flapping away. And there he'd smile from ear to ear, a kind warmth that drew us near. The beach's bonfire, our rite of age, with friends around, the world our stage. The bonfires glow, our future bright. In its warmth, our dreams took flight. As years rolled by, our paths diverged. Through life's mosaic, we submerged. In the chaos of life's vast sphere, your memory holds forever dear. So here's to days of youth so bright, of air cadet drills in morning's light. Your smile, a beacon, steadfast and dear. In our hearts and memories, you are always near. Thank you.
I would very much like to thank everybody for coming today. It's been a long few months leading up to this moment. I would really, before I get going and talking about David, I would like to mention that a year before David died in 2022, Joel's beautiful daughter, his beautiful daughter Samantha died. Her picture's up there with David's, and she was only 35, but her celebrations of life were held in Ontario where she lived and sadly died. She is missed by her dad, Joel, her mother, Carrie, her husband, Mike, and many friends and relatives. And I just want to make sure she was included. I would like to, thank you. I would like to introduce David's immediate family because some of you may not have had the opportunity to meet them. My husband, Joel, is right there. Wave. Just in case you didn't see him. And beside him is Ian, who is David's dad. His wife, Elizabeth, unfortunately, they live in Vancouver, and Elizabeth unfortunately couldn't be here because she had her appendix out last week. So it's David's stepfather, Dan, is back there, and his wife, Joanne, is beside him. How about that? We were his immediate family, although obviously there are many, many more family members here on all sides. All his New Brunswick friends and later his friends in BC and his family contributed to David's life in many ways as he grew up to be a man, a friend, a husband, and father. Ian is going to tell a little bit of his memories of David.
Hi. Obviously, I've been introduced. My name is Ian, and David is my son. As his father, I use the present tense since, regardless of events, he will always be my first and only beloved son. I want to thank you all most sincerely for coming today to share memories and stories of David. These are the tangible evidence of a positive and enduring influence he had on all those who knew him. His mother and I are deeply touched and comforted by your presence and your kind words. Like any father and parent, there are lots of stories I can share of his growing up, his the great times we had together. Like our cross-Canada road trip when he was 6, I was still finding Lego in the car years later. Canoeing on Lake Powell in British Columbia when he was 9. Paddling so hard to avoid looking like a lily dipper. The trip to Alaska on the BC and Washington State ferries when he was 10, and meeting a bear at Glacier Bay. I was worried that I was going to have to explain something to Cece. Thankfully, it didn't come up that way. Hiking the West Coast Trail when he was 12, sharing a tent with Ro, my wife at the time, when his pup tent got wet. Kayaking around Nelson Island in BC when he was 13, showing his fishing skills when he caught our supper, a lingcod. And our European bus trip together, and later car trip with Ro and his grandmother when he was 14, and sometimes could be convinced to help us out with his French. During these years, David was living with his mom on the East Coast while I was living in Vancouver. This meant that David racked up lots of frequent flyer points flying across Canada as an unaccompanied minor. In all his traveling, he was incredibly brave and mature and resourceful, with only one complaint. During a connection in Montreal, the airline just left him hungry, thirsty, and alone in a room until the connecting flight was ready. He reminded me this periodically all the time. David's company for several weeks a year, Cece had the closer, more intense, and at times more challenging experience of his formative years. She and her husband Dan have many more memories of the joys and tribulations that raising our son gave her. And she was and is a wonderful mother who did a brilliant job in raising him. I know this not only from my time with David over the years, but from the mature, confident, independent, and capable young man who came to live with me after he graduated from high school. Cece, you did great. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart and soul. After a year at Simon Fraser, finding it interfered with his social life, David found work in the film industry with help from my brother Andrew. This gave him the freedom to work hard and then to indulge in his real passion, long vacations involving cheap travel to exotic places, surfing and skiing. And indulge he did, spending months traveling in Central America, arriving home penniless, Southeast Asia and Bali and Vietnam in particular, and then a year in Australia with Sonia, his longtime companion and fiancée at the time, and again arriving home almost broke. The travel, surfing, and skiing basically ended when he met Linnea and decided to start a family, marry, buy a house, and commit to being the financial provider. When our grandchildren, Matthias and Isla, were born, he was so proud and happy. He loved them with all his heart. But the film industry is tough, with long hours, especially for the genial, who was responsible for providing all the electric power for the film set. So David was the first person on set in the morning and the last person to leave at night. While providing a great income, his work involved long hours each day, followed by sleeping half the weekend just to recover. While he didn't complain, I know he realized and regretted that he was missing the experience of his children growing up, especially when they were young. I had no idea what it meant to have a child, to be complete as a person and fully alive. I was unprepared to discover the intense and consuming love I experienced for the new member of humanity that my wife had risked so much to bring into the world. The emotion of just looking at my son, feeling like crying with happiness when a 3-year-old suddenly runs up to you and gives you a hug. The love and a bit of jealousy watching Cece's reaction when nursing him. That ancient and special bond between mother and child. My pride and joy when he introduced me to his own newborn children. I would be less of a person and would have missed a significant part of what it means to be human without David in my life. Thank you, David, and the gifts and the love you gave me. At the time that David came to live with me, I was married to Ro Campbell, and she sent along a note that she was not able to come to read herself, so I will read it for her. I remember David, a story from 1986. In the summer of 1986, David was 12 years old, and as usual had arrived in Vancouver to spend time with Ian over his summer holidays. One of the planned summer activities was to hike the West Coast Trail, with a couple of friends from the High Timer Hiking Skiing Club. Ian had done his research about the trail. We knew there would be wooden ladders to climb and logs to walk across creeks, fallen trees and bogs as part of the world-famous 75-kilometer Wilderness Trail, built in 1907 on the west coast of Vancouver Island to facilitate the rescue of shipwrecked survivors. Even with this knowledge, we thought, what could go wrong? Well, a 12-year-old moves faster than Ian and I, especially with Ian staying behind with me. I generally brought up the rear of any high timer hike. Where's David? That's our Waldo. Was our refrain when Ian and I encountered a very challenging section of the hike, and then a huge sigh of relief every time we arrived at the next stop point. And there he was, totally blasé about his success with crossing a blowdown of very large trees or climbing 30-foot ladders. David demonstrated his independence not only by scampering over fallen trees, but also carrying his gear in a backpack, sleeping in his own small tent when it wasn't raining, except that it was not waterproof enough for the wet coast. So he joined Ian and I in our tent. My memory is that he was quiet as a mouse, or you could say he was still waters run deep. Kind of a guy, even at 12 years old. David caught the travel bug from Ian and went on to have many adventures on his own, with infrequent communications back to home base. I will always remember his adventurous spirit. Roll Campbell.
David's wife Linnea, his son Matthias, and Isla. Sorry. Send a warm welcome and their appreciation for being part of her husband and dad's life. Thank you all for gathering to celebrate the life of David. No doubt some of you are in countries far away as he touched the lives of many in his travels. It's hard to gather in a short message a person's life that lived the life of 10. It was early one morning at work when I met Mr. McLean on the set of a show called Split Decision. My life would be changed forever. It was inevitable. Our lives would be joined forever. We had so much in common. We shared backgrounds of world travels, wild adventures, and living life to the fullest. Being young and adventurous, two lives became one. Whether mountain biking or on a motorbike, we were living our best life. It was a whirlwind of biking and surfing, snorkeling, music concerts, photography, traveling, airplane lessons, romantic getaways, or playing Scrabble and having us time. Tourists in our own hometown. Every day was Christmas. Every night a New Year's Eve. We painted and thrifted and reworked old furniture, building our nest and future together. Dave was brilliant. He was amazing with his hands, from woodwork to omelets and everything in between. He had a wicked sense of humor and was always thinking outside the box. He was so creative, a great problem solver. He worked very hard at whatever he did. He put his mind to, it was always perfect. His competence and camaraderie, were cherished at home and on many film sets. I loved everything about Dave. His infectious laugh, his voice, crazy ideas. We left each other notes and surprises. He made me feel like I was his queen and he was my king. It was us against the world. Later, we gave each other the greatest gift possible, a baby boy and a baby girl. I am forever grateful for the gift of motherhood. The legacy of our love lives on through our beautiful children, and their existence makes the world a better place. Dave took a year off to help with our babies, who arrived 10 months apart. He was such a proud father. He loved to show his little family, and all those adventures we experienced were transformed into providing the best life for our children. I thank you for that. We really did have it all. David McLean, a life well lived. Love, your loving wife and children.
I don't think I need a microphone. At least my family never thought I did. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Good. That's just another stumble. Okay. Author unknown. I heard your voice in the wind today, and I turned to see your face. The warmth of the wind caressed me as I stood silently in place. I felt your touch in the sun today as its warmth filled the sky. I closed my eyes for your embrace, and my spirit soared high. I saw your eyes in the window pane as I watched the falling rain. It seemed as each raindrop fell, you quietly said your name. I held you close in my heart today. It made me feel complete. You may have died, but you are not gone. You will always be a part of me as long as the sun shines, the wind blows, the rain falls. You will live on inside of me forever, for that is all my heart knows.
We're losing it, so. And it helps when you can see. Thank you, Sandy, for several things, not the least of which is the beautiful flowers, the reading of the poem, and remembering to bring a box of Kleenex. I knew that was going to happen. Friday's child is loving and giving, and that was David to a T. He gave and gave to his family, his friends, rarely asking for anything from himself. Even as a little boy, he didn't ask for things. Finding out what he'd like to have for Christmas was a challenge. I would show him the Sears wish book, where they existed back then, and he'd never tell me what he liked or what he wanted. He'd just say he'd be happy with whatever Santa brought, and he was. Many tributes his friends sent to me after word of his death spread touched my heart. They told me how much they loved his sense of humor, his creativity, his kindness, and his adventurous spirit. When he was little, as Ian described, he and his dad traveled together. The first summer that they went out on their own, they headed across Canada and zigzagged through the States and into Mexico. I strongly suspect, and Ian confirmed, that was the beginning of an incredible wanderlust. Ian had moved to Vancouver, so as he said, during summer holidays, David would fly out and spend time with his dad and family. The adventures continued with their camping trips, sometimes with David's uncle Andrew and his wife Linda, and then with Ian's second wife Rob, that sent the message before. They explored the West Coast Trail, Alaska, and off to Europe with Ian's mother, Thelma. As his childhood friend Jill, who's sitting over there, said about their class trip to New York City, he was slightly off-kilter, energetic, engaging, and a kind soul who made us all smile and laugh. He was a great friend, and we are all richer for having known him. When Dan, David, and I moved from downtown Hampton to the wilds of the Lower Norton Shore Road on the Kingston Peninsula, and it was, David discovered new ways to contribute to the gray hairs on my head. He and his friend Greg would test the limits of gravity by rock climbing down the road at Red Rock without benefit of any kind of safety gear, harnesses, etc. Or they'd snowboard down the steep hill through the field beside our house, which was rock-strewn, risking life and limb every time. And he's absolutely responsible for the color of my hair. Greg said that Dave was that friend you always were glad to have on your side. He turned the heads of many girls with his red hair and good looks. Like many teens at the time, he enjoyed rock groups like Nine Inch Nails, The Cult, the Red Hot Chili Peppers with his friends. But with all of his travels, he was introduced to many other cultures and other music. And he introduced a lot of them to me. We both like Latin music, its happy rhythms, and many of his favorites are still on my playlists today. After high school, he moved to Vancouver with his dad to go to university and decided, as Ian said, that wasn't his thing. Through Andrew, he landed a summer job with a company called Mirage Illuminations that supplied lighting and equipment to the movie and TV production industry. He had found his niche. He called me to tell me he wasn't going back to school and would find work and travel, and asked me what I thought. I swallowed a lot and said, I don't care if you're a brain surgeon or a ditch digger, as long as you're good at it and you can generate enough money to support the lifestyle that you obviously want to live. Apparently he did that too. For a while, he and another expat New Brunswicker, Mike Ryan, shared a house with a few other people. They were good friends over the years and shared a need to find excitement in the big city and also to freeze to death while surfing in the icy winter waves off Tofino on Vancouver Island. Between work gigs, David traveled. On one break, he came home for a short visit and then headed to Central America with nothing but a hammock and a backpack. He crossed the border from Brownsville, Texas, and hiked his way through some very treacherous areas, both physically challenging and with a need to avoid potentially dangerous creatures. He told me later, though, that the scariest part of the whole trip was on his way home, going through the airport in Los Angeles, where he had to avoid being accosted or robbed. David met Sonia Kuznetsov in Vancouver at that time, and they were together for 13 years. They did a lot of traveling between production jobs and spent time in Vietnam, South Korea, Bali, and almost a year of van life before it was a thing in Australia. They supported themselves by becoming itinerant farm workers, picking fruit and whatever else. And who knew that if they were doing that today, they could have made a fortune doing YouTube videos. Instead, as Ian said, they came home broke afterwards. I'm not sure where his obsession with plaid shirts came from, but if you saw the picture of him and Samantha over here and the ones that are in the video and in the logbooks, I think that's his sole wardrobe. It was rare to see him wearing anything that wasn't a plaid shirt. He worked on several well-known TV shows and movies, and then met an actress, Linnea Sharples, while working on one of the series. They were married in 2007 and had the two children, Matthias and Isla. They quickly outgrew their apartment and bought a home in North Vancouver, so there'd be more room for the kids in the yard and all those fun things that David wanted. He loved having a family, and he was extremely proud of his kids. Sadly, his job meant brutally long hours, and when he was home, he was exhausted, and probably too much so to really enjoy the family life that he craved so much. As a true Virgo, he was a quick thinker and had an obsessive need to be busy all the time. I'm sure that made him a little difficult to live with at times, but as Mike Ryan said, I'm grateful for Dave. He was an exciting, energetic, driven guy that I was proud to call my friend. His outgoing personality made him a natural for leadership roles at work. He became shop steward for his union and easily made friends with many of the crew and actors on the shows he worked on. Fellow crew member Bree said she hoped he knew how much he was loved, respected, and now missed by all who knew him. When he went missing on October 9th last year, just 3 weeks after his 50th birthday, despite the ongoing writers and actors strike, his union friends hit the street in Vancouver looking for him. Actor Stephen Amell, with whom he'd worked on the Arrow series, did a heartfelt video asking people to keep an eye out for David to help bring him home. He also stressed that if anyone knew anyone who was suffering any kind of stress, mental illness, that they encouraged their friend to seek the help they might need. David's life had great meaning to many people. He was creative, brilliant, intelligent, fiercely independent, and wildly adventurous. He could light up a room with his smile, and that is the man, the child I bore, that I want to remember, and I hope others do too. Celebrate that he lived, and keep him in your memories, for that is where love lives. In honor of both David and Samantha, 2 trees have been planted on the nature walkway here in Sussex, living tributes to our wonderful children who will never be forgotten and who will be loved forever.
Northwestern blowing outside my song. Inside is coming, the rhythm is strong. With eyes a crackling, the embers turn bright. Memories are flowing like fine wine tonight. Old times are gone, new times are here. Cannot live on throughout full lives in here. Old age or whatever the future might be. Just growing up, we're not growing up. We remember you well. A future our children will tell. Thank you for picking us up when we fell. Go happy, go down very well. Old friends are falling like leaves from a tree. On the high winds of life, they're falling set free. World where they knew all the joy from a good years, beginning years, they all feel the same. Can't help but feel that for the good ones who are grandfather's father, the father's and son. They all left us something with the tales that they told, memories they gave us and left us to hold. We remember you well. To our children will tell. Thank you for picking us up when we fell. Go happy, go down very well. Northwest wind blowing outside like a song. Inside is coming, the rhythm is strong. Fires crackling and the embers burn. Memories are flowing like fine wine tonight. We remember you well. To our children we'll tell. Thank you for picking us up when we fell. Go happy, go down very well. We remember you well.
As Lydia wrote, much like David's life, he traveled so far, as many as you did today. People from Nova Scotia, parts of New Brunswick, Ontario, British Columbia, CC, Ian, Dan, friends, family, we thank you all so much for being a part of his celebration today. And as CC said, it's not a celebration of life, it's David's party. He liked life, he lived life. We've heard from CC and Ian and from his stepmother and other people and stories that people have shared with me and with others today. He really did get the meaning of life. On behalf of the family, I think it's pretty easy to say for everyone, if you take anything from the service, let's live our best life. Thank you.